right, I know it's been like a year. I posted a few funny videos. You guys seem to really like them. You subscribe to the channel, and then boom, nothing. No videos, no updates, maybe a few shorts, and that's about it. I promised you guys I would deliver you some updates and some information as to where I've been and what the heck I've been working on. So, without further ado, this is my new studio. All right, so let me just take you on a quick little tour of the live room here in my new studio. So I put a lot of effort into trying to soundproof it because I do have a newborn and my wife complained about the sound earlier. Drums aren't very forgiving. So I soundproofed the room, I decoupled it from the rest of the house, and I started building my own treatment because I did find out that making or buying your own acoustic treatment can get really costly. So I like to build things and I made my own. Let's go, I'll quit talking. As I was saying, soundproofing is pretty difficult to do and perfect, and it actually took me quite a long time. There were so many different challenges because this new renovation, this part of the house that was being added onto an old part, was really tough to get right, and how the architect had designed it really posed some challenges for myself trying to get it right. So with that being said, I ended up decoupling this whole room from the rest of the house so any vibrations wouldn't travel through the ceiling into the floor above or out or throughout any other walls. So I want to show you some of the mic setup and what I ended up using for cabling to patch in all of my microphones to track drums. So I've got two sets of 1/4-inch inputs here so that guitar players could leave their cabs in here and then have their heads inside of the mix room. That way they can just, completely be isolated and not have to worry about being too loud and ruining their hearing. The next box over here is a set of Cat 5 or Cat 6 inputs so that I can run some video through that. Now eventually I'll do the live streaming thing once I get some faster internet and I can hook up basically anything through Ethernet. And that's kind of the whole idea with this studio, is that it was going to be primarily used and functioning by the use of Ethernet cables. Which brings me on to this next box here. This is what I primarily run all my audio through. And it's the same as the other box, except that this cabling attached to it, I've made myself, are Cat 6 shielded cables. And so basically the idea with this is that every single cable will give you 4 channels of analog audio. So you can run 4 microphones off of one cable, giving you a lot cleaner look and less clutter. All right, so we have the information, the analog audio running through Cat 6, but we need to get it back to an XLR. So Radial makes these really handy boxes. They're really rigid, and it breaks out into 4 analog cables here so you can plug your microphones into. Very handy. Now, obviously, keep in mind you need the reverse to go back into your interface, but these are a saving grace as far as cable management is concerned. All right, now one of the main concerns I had was over time, I don't know, let's say 3 or 4 years, since I've been recording drums on my own, I've been able to get only so far with my abilities as far as mixing goes, and it really comes down to how good your room sounds. Now, I went down so many frickin' rabbit holes in trying to learn how to do acoustics properly, but it's clearly the law of it's clearly scientific and there's a lot of physics applied to it. So I want to explain to you a couple things I did here with trying to regulate some low-end concerns that I was having over those 3 or 4 years. So these lighter blue looking things here are actually bass traps that I made. And I made all the treatment for this studio here just to try and cut down on cost because let's face it, this build was rather expensive to pull off. So what I have here is 17 inches by 17 inches deep, and this is filled full of safe and sound rock salt or rock wool. And then if you know much about acoustics, you'll understand that absorbing way too much of the frequencies out of your room is really bad acoustically. So I actually used some spray adhesive and I lined the face of these with some brown paper. Now the idea behind that is so that the low end will still pass through, but the mid and high frequencies will actually reflect off of it, thus leaving me with a less muddy drum mix. Now you'll notice I've primarily got them in the main corners of the room, and that's because that low end likes to build up pressure in these areas. So that's where I really wanted to start with the treatment itself. Now keep in mind, this is not a acoustically complete studio. I've still got a couple more things I'd like to put up, but as far as it's concerned, I listened back after tracking and it sounds immensely better. So I'm very glad that I actually took the time to build these. Oh, and in case you wondered, this fabric is from Guilford of Maine. It's on the rather expensive side, but it's really nice to work with, and your insurance company won't hate you because it's actually fire retardant. So now another thing that you should be concerned about when you're tracking drums is comb filtering, or the reflections that come off of parallel and adjacent surfaces and are transmitted back into your microphone. So what happens with that is you're going to be tracking your drums, and these sounds are getting reflected, and those are sounds that you can't necessarily subtractively EQ out in your DAW. So it gets really difficult, and I've been really frustrated with that over the past few years. So I decided to make this thing here. All right, so this here is a ceiling cloud. For those who don't know what it is, it's just to help with, like I said, with the comb filtering and the reflections of parallel surfaces like the ceiling and the floor from coming back from the reflective surface into your microphone. So what I used for this was just some 1x6, and on the inside I've lined it with 2 layers of 1.5" Rockwool Rockboard 80. So it's a lot denser than the bigger, thicker stuff like Safe and Sound I put in the bass trapping. And the idea behind that is so that it actually tightens up the sound of your drums, like primarily your snare drum and your toms. And it also lessens the harshness of your cymbals. But one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is that you don't want to absorb all of the frequencies. So I once again faced this with the brown craft paper like the bass traps so that it would actually reflect a little more. And actually it turned out really good. There's a lot of information online about acoustics and its proprietary designs and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of conflicting and confusing information. So I tried it out of just sheer curiosity. I wanted to do some trials and take some measurements, and I found that this actually really helped. So I've got 3 inches of insulation in here, and I've got it about 1 inch to 2 inches from the ceiling. So I've added a similar amount of air in between the absorption and the ceiling reflection point. So that gives me a total depth of roughly 6 to 7 inches. And I found it really helps clear up the low end from 300 hertz down, and it's really helped out my recordings. All right, so there's one more thing I want to show you guys, and it's that the idea about this studio build was to make it fully functioning, and basically if you were down here making music, you really didn't have to go upstairs into the living quarters and stuff. So I built a little bathroom. So it's fully functioning, wash your hands, take a crap, whatever, but you don't have to go upstairs to do it. Whether that's your band or if you just need me to drum on some of your tracks, then go through my website. I'll have that down in the description below. Again, I apologize so very much for taking my sweet ass time trying to get all this together to show you what I've been working on, but here it is, and now that's pretty much the end of the tour, so get out.